Speculation, shall I say, is growing that the EFL TV deal in the 2024-2025 season is going to be split between several TV stations and potentially with streaming giants. Sky Sports have held the share of EFL coverage for many years. I mean, they had it when I was there. It's understood they're now under threat come the bidding process. So the Swedish streaming company Viaplay is emerging as a potential stakeholder in the next EFL TV deal. Is this what we're coming to? Should the EFL break away from Sky and go down the streaming route?
Well, it's nice to have options, isn't it? Because primarily the reasons why the old geezer with a rattle that Sky used to put out was the halcyon look.
That was me.
Do you remember it? It was you, wasn't it?
That was, yeah.
But do you remember that they had wonderful bells and whistles and everything fantastic in the Premier League, and an old geezer with a rattle was the denotion of the EFL, which gave you no aspirational feel to it at all. I know what they're trying to achieve, which is club feel, value, but come on now, the money is the side of things that we're trying to get the stardust around. I think it's great that there's another game in town. I think OTT streaming is a thing that I've been long advocating for. I believe that football can row its own boat. I believe it doesn't need to have third-party relationships with broadcasters anymore. It's got a proof of concept. It can easily build out its own Netflix of football. The problem with the EFL is that it's about price point. They could quite easily turn it into the zone of broadcasting, which at this moment in time isn't a particularly great success for boxing. But I do think it's a useful thing. One of the things that the EFL have never been able to achieve is an alignment of the negotiating rights alongside the Premier League, so that the discussion happens at the same time as the Premier League rights are being awarded to the Premier League, and they negotiate out of kilter, and they get the runt of the litter. They get treated as second-class citizens financially, because ultimately there's an element of that's what they are, but you don't have to compound it. So I like the fact that there is another ability to be able to get some competitive tension into the conversation. I like the fact they've got Trevor Birch in situ, who's a grown-up that can make sense of these things, rather than some of his previous incumbents that have been there that haven't done anything particularly wonderful.
But
going all the way back
that the EFL might beat the Premier League to doing this.
Well, no, you see, because you're not falling off a cliff with the EFL deal. If you hand over to an OTT platform, you are in effect assuming that there's going to be enough appetite to give you $3 billion a year. You follow me?
Yeah.
Which is what you're currently getting from the broadcast deals that are in place for domestic and overseas rights. But there's $200 million available to 72 clubs inside the Championship. A little bit more, right? 300, let's call it for sake of argument. 400 if we want to round it up with solidarity payments, right? So with all that in mind, it's a less of a steeper cliff to fall off, and more chance for an OTT platform to hit the ground running.
So it would make more sense for the EFL to go first.
Well, there's less risk attached to it.
Right.
So what you'd have to do with the Premier League, which is I've always advocated for, is you do a joint venture with one of the merchant banks, and you build a platform that gets the next 3 years of funding, because you don't want Sky or someone like to strangle you on the funding arrangements, because ultimately they will now be losing that deal and will subsequently become unhelpful, and legacy rights about what's happened in the past will come into discussion. I think what it is an indication that there is an appetite for Championship football. Tragically, there won't be an appetite for League One or League Two, but they'll get carried. They'll get carried along the way. And I always maintain, not because it was another form of elitism, I used to say to League One and League Two clubs with the greatest respect in the world, which meant none, shut up and let the Championship negotiate for you, and then take the benefit off the table of the preordained deal. Now, the deal needed to be better because the distribution was slightly unfair, 80% for the Championship, 12% for League One, 8% for League Two. So it's another version of the Premier League, just on smaller scales.
Right.
But the Championship is the Premier League 2 in some people's minds. It's got the best supported crowds, or the fifth best supported league in all of European football. So there's real value in it.
You say that, but Sky Sports reportedly had been hit by poor Championship viewing figures this season. The highest one came in the opening match between Huddersfield and Burnley.
Well, that may well be a combination of what it was up against, or what they've been currently up against, the timing of EFL games against Premier League games, and the whole promotion of the thing. If you create an image of... You're packaging it in a certain way where you are undeniably packaging it as the runt of the litter. So you're in a situation where people are going to watch other things rather than simply the EFL. But it doesn't mean that it can't be done better. Can it ever be the Premier League? No, it can't. Can it ever get the numbers of the Premier League have got? No, it can't. But can it get to a point where it's far more economically beneficial alongside a better distribution from the Premier League to make football more sustainable?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it can.
Yes, it can. And what do you charge? What should a streaming platform charge, say, for, let's call it an EFL pass?
I don't know. I mean, off the top of my head, I don't know. I mean, you've got to put economic viability. It depends what people want to use it for. If they want to use it as a digital ticket to watch games rather than attend live audiences because they want to stream all the single games, that's one thing. If they're doing it as a broadcaster of preference for games that are being broadcast on a basis like Premier League games, is a pick of X amount of games. They buy 216 games from the EFL and they price it at such a level. It'll have to be based upon how it makes sense to the OTT guys and the clubs and the fans. It certainly shouldn't be up there with the levels of the Premier League.
No. So you're looking at a tenner a month maybe or something?
Something.
I mean,
perhaps a little bit
maybe
more
something
than that.
like that?
A little bit more than that, I suspect.
But thank you for that.
I do my level best.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.